All right, welcome to Roots of Reality Experiences. I'm joined by Matt Besler, who played 13 seasons in Major League Soccer, most of which for Sporting Kansas City, where he won one MLS Cup, three U.S. Open Cups, was selected for the MLS Best 11 twice, was a five-time All-Star, and was the 2012 Defender of the Year. Additionally, Matt played for Team USA in the 2014 World Cup, is a two-time Gold Cup champion with Team USA, and is one of the greatest players in Sporting Kansas City history and one of the best center backs in MLS history. So, Matt, thanks for coming on today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So, just to start off, when did you first get interested in soccer in general?
We're going way back. Yeah, I first started playing soccer because my parents signed me up. I was 4 or 5 years old, and parents signed me up for Blue Valley Parks and Rec. We grew up in Johnson County in the Blue Valley School District, so soccer was kind of just starting out in Kansas City. Neither of my parents played soccer. They didn't have any background in it, and so it was kind of just a popular thing for parents to sign their kids up for, and that's what they did.
Yeah, okay. So that's a similar. I feel like a similar background to a lot of Kansans. I'm also originally from Kansas. I grew up in the Leavenworth area. So but yes, youth soccer in Kansas. So how do you think being a player growing up in Kansas kind of impacted you, and how does that compare to like some of the other journeys of MLS players?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that I always thought Kansas City is a great soccer community. I think we have a ton of talent in Kansas City. I would say that not many people think that outside of Kansas City.
Okay.
But growing up, I never thought that Kansas City was too small. I mean, I always thought like, wow, there's so many good teams. There's a lot of good players. There's a ton of competition in our city. So I never felt like I needed to leave Kansas City to find something better. But when I first started noticing it was when I would start traveling outside of Kansas City for, like out of town tournaments with my club team, and even more specifically with ODP, with the Olympic Development Program. We would go and start, playing with kids from around our region, St. Louis, Chicago, Michigan, Ohio, and they definitely thought of Kansas a lot differently than I did, and so it definitely took a lot longer for me to build trust with some of the people and build trust with the coaches. I definitely felt like I got overlooked early on, and it just took longer for me to prove myself that, hey, a kid from Kansas could actually play with kids from other areas around the country. So that was my experience. Maybe it's changed a little bit now, but that was 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I mean, even today, when I tell people I'm from Kansas originally, I usually just hear like Wizard of Oz jokes. Like it's amazing how often people reference that film when it comes to Kansas. I don't know if that's your experience, but
Yeah, I mean, I can remember when I was, 12, 13, going to like regional ODP camps and, being the only kid from Kansas that would make the regional team or like the youth national team. And yeah, I mean, kids, they weren't trying to be mean. I think they genuinely were asking me
yeah,
like if we practice in cow pastures, or like they would ask like, do you have soccer fields in Kansas?
yeah,
Like, yeah, we do. We have lots of soccer fields. We don't practice in the middle of a cornfield.
right.
So we've come a long way.
That's right. Yeah, it seems like it. I mean, I feel like maybe if you're in like the western part of Kansas, which is like much more rural and kind of cowboy-ish, I suppose you can kind of have that stereotype more. But like the Kansas City area is just so cosmopolitan, like many cities around the country that it is kind of funny that people just assume it's all like, this kind of farmer type town place. So
Yeah, I will say though, like that kind of stuff never bothered me.
yeah.
And looking back, I mean, I think it was a motivating factor for me, and then like a lot of the kids I played with too. I just remember, it gave us this mentality that like, yeah, we're being overlooked and nobody thinks we're good, and that motivated us to go out and prove to other people like we can play with anybody in the country. And I loved that part of it. I mean, I felt like I carried that part with me for the rest of my career, and that sort of like laid the foundation of the approach that I always had. I always thought it was great showing up to these national tournaments and being a team from Kansas. Nobody thought we were going to be good. and all of a sudden we'd play the game and we beat them 3-0, and they'd be turning around like, wait, what just happened? Like that was awesome. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, no, I think that's special. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, Kansas is the center of the country, and you kind of people aren't sure what to make of people from Kansas in general. Most people haven't been to Kansas if they're from other parts of the state. So I feel like if you're from this part of the country, you kind of have to have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, just because, we're not New York or California where everyone knows, these are the states that are, kind of the powerhouse, states in the country. But kind of cool. So I'm curious then, did you ever go to like any Kansas City Wizards soccer camps or something growing up?
I don't remember going to any camps, but I definitely remember going to the games. So rewind before the Wizards started, I used to go to the indoor soccer games down at Kemper Arena.
Okay.
So I know that they were called the Comets for a very long time. That was before I started going to the games. So when
Okay.
I started going, they were called the Attack, the
Okay.
Kansas City
Interesting.
Attack. Yeah. And so I was born in '87. So I probably started going to Attack games like early '90s,
Okay.
throughout the '90s. But that was kind of my first soccer memories. Have a lot of like childhood heroes that played indoor soccer for the Kansas City Attack. And then in '96 is when we got the Major League Soccer team with the Wizards. So yeah, between '96, early 2000s, definitely used to go to games with my family. Would go to the games in the summer out at Arrowhead with the kids I grew up playing soccer with. I would say it slowed down a little bit once I got to high school. You're more
Yeah.
busy. You're doing a bunch of stuff, so I wouldn't go to as many games. But yeah, I grew up a fan.
Yeah. I'm curious then, like, you know, w when you were going to these games, did you ever think that you would go on to like play for the team? I mean, that seems like such a weird, like a
No,
coincidence. The chances of you playing for your hometown team, super rare. So,
yeah, no, I mean, I never. I wish I could say yes, but
yeah.
I was never in the stadium watching games, being like, "That's going to be me one day."
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I dreamed of that, but yeah, I was just a regular kid. Regular kid. There was kids on my team who were better than me, and so I like playing all different sports. Grew up in Kansas City, and um, yeah, kind of ebbed and flowed throughout the year with favorite sports. I mean, I could probably tell you when I was a kid, soccer wasn't necessarily my favorite sport. It kind of just depended on the season.
Yeah.
I spent many hours on my driveway, like dreaming that I was going to play college basketball.
Okay.
That was kind of what I dreamed of. But yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, I played soccer the most growing up, but I think my first favorite sport was hockey. So
Oh, nice.
not a normal thing for a Kansan to say, but
Yeah.
but
Well, I
yeah,
just think
yeah,
I mean, soccer's a pretty hard sport to play by yourself.
yes,
Yeah, and even just with like a buddy, you can like pass the ball, but that's not very fun. And so basketball and like some other sports, they're just easier to play. They're easier to practice on yourself, by
yeah,
yourself, and
definitely,
so that's typically what I did.
yeah. When you were playing for Sporting, actually before you were playing for Sporting Kansas City, obviously they're the Wizards. What was the transition like for you being a Kansan and the teams changing their name from the identity, that they had when you were a kid growing up to this new team, Sporting Kansas City, while you're on it? I mean, I feel like that must have been kind of a unique situation.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. I was excited about it. I was mostly excited about the stadium. I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah, yeah.
knew the stadium. Well, I didn't really know, but I had a good feeling that the stadium was really going to change a lot, and there was just so much excitement around the stadium. So, that's what I was most excited about, and I think the name change just kind of coincided with,
Hmm.
okay, we're opening up this brand new world-class stadium. Um, so I think the name change was kind of secondary in my mind.
Yeah,
The name's the name,
yeah,
and I'm going to play for the team no matter what they call it. So I didn't really have a strong opinion.
yeah,
I just thought it was really cool how we were going to be playing in a brand new stadium, and it made sense to me in a lot of ways that they were going to rebrand it. I thought
yeah.
it was good timing to do that.
Yeah, no, I think that. it did make sense. I mean, I remember when they first changed, obviously I was fairly young when they changed the name, and having grown up with like the Wizards at first, I was like, what? They're changing the name? You serious? Like, and
Yeah.
that was surprising to me. And then I kind of over time started to realize, well, the Wizards is kind of a strange name in general, so I guess it's not bad. Um,
Yeah, yeah, well,
Sporting
it is
Kansas
what it
City,
is. I mean,
yeah,
they I remember, looking back, there was a lot of like discussion and
yeah,
debate about the name, and a lot of like non-soccer traditionalists were
yep,
making fun of the name. Like, I don't understand
yeah,
it. This isn't American.
right,
Um, and so I don't know. That didn't really bother us. If anything, it kind of helped us because it created conversation.
true,
And at that time, we weren't that popular. So we needed people talking about us, and we needed that recognition and people debating on sports radio and being on the news, making fun of us. Like, all that exposure, I think, helped us. And again, going back to the whole motivating thing, I think it kind of motivated us. Like, hey, let's prove people wrong. People that
yeah.
are making fun of this name and saying, "Oh, soccer will never work in this city." And okay, yeah, let's go out and see what we can do.
No, I think that's definitely the case. And the new stadium, as you're mentioning, like it is such a big boost to have your own stadium, not having to play in an NFL stadium. I mean, that's just always kind of a strange thing to have been playing in Arrowhead, but just shows how much soccer has grown in Kansas and around the country now with all the MLS, so many MLS teams now having their own designated stadiums. That's super cool. Um, I do miss kind of the Kansas City Wizards mascot though. The green dinosaur I always thought was kind of fun. I think it was like
Oh yeah,
Dynamo or something. Yeah. It's like,
yeah, yeah. I mean, try to connect the dots on that. I don't
yeah.
think anybody knows like what
Yeah.
the dragon, dynamo. There's a whole lot of things that are just thrown together there that not quite sure makes sense. But
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. I mean, I was living in Europe postgraduate school and actually for graduate school, sorry. And I remember explaining to some of my European friends, like our team used to be called the Wizards. With like the Wizards, like what kind of name is that?
yeah,
I was like, it was pretty cool. I don't know. We had some wizard stuff going on. So I had a green dragon.
wasn't there a like a what was the Magic Minute, like the
Oh
Wizards,
yes.
or I'm sure it was sponsored by somebody,
Yeah.
Price Chopper or
Yeah.
like Pizza Hut or something. But there was a Magic Minute where if the team scored during that minute, the whole stadium
Yes.
free
Yeah.
pizza or something.
I
Oh, that was
remember. Yeah, I remember that vaguely. Yeah, it's probably got to be like Price Chopper or something. I feel like they sponsored a lot of stuff.
yeah. Shout
That's
out to Price Chopper.
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was pretty funny. It was definitely kind of a very like unique vibe at those Kansas City Wizards games. And I remember like having a birthday party there once at a game. And yeah, it was interesting. But the thing I remember the most though from the Wizards days, and I'll be really curious to get your take on this, because for me, this was like a really big moment uh for me and thinking about Kansas City soccer is when Manchester United came to Arrowhead to play the Kansas City Wizards at the time before we became Spring Kansas City. What was going through your head in that game? And what was like the build up to it like for you? I know it was a friendly, but there's definitely something intriguing to me about that matchup.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, what a cool opportunity. Um, I don't care who you are. If you get a chance to play Manchester United, I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, regardless if it was a friendly or they were in preseason, or if the game was going to be played at Arrowhead or if it was going to be played at Swope Park, like
Yeah.
it's a great opportunity, and I think the players, we were all excited about it. I would have to give credit to our team and the leadership and the coaches at the time, and Peter Vermes, with the way that we approached the game. I think leading up to the game, we had a decision to make, and Peter was really like the driving factor in all of this. I think at that time, those exhibition games were really popular, and like there were friendlies, but there was a lot of negativity around them. it was like, why are we playing these games? And it doesn't really mean anything. And a lot of people would like rest the starters and you wouldn't even play.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like this weird thing. But Peter was very clear leading up to this game that we were going to take it seriously. And there was a lot of, obvious reasons why we were going to take it seriously. But, it was just a big opportunity for us to showcase who we were as a team. So, like the week or two leading up, I mean, we were still playing our club games, and I mean those were the ones that really mattered. But like the preparation for that Manchester United game was like any other game, and we took it very seriously. We put together a game plan, we trained hard, we watched film of the opponent, all that stuff, and we went into that game with the objective that we were going to go try and win. This wasn't just a friendly. So that part was cool. Getting to play at Arrowhead, pretty much a packed house. That's the kind of stuff that you do dream about, that you never think's actually going to happen. So the energy from the entire city was really cool. I didn't start that game. That was my second year in the league, so I had a little different perspective. I was kind of bummed out that I wasn't going to get to play or that I wasn't going to get to start.
Yeah.
But I also I could kind of take it all in a little bit more because I was a reserve. So like during warmups and stuff, I didn't have to be as focused. So I got to look around a little bit more and just kind of think about how cool it was. Um, Somebody got a red card. I think it was Jimmy Conrad
Yeah.
got a red card like really early in the first half, and so I got subbed in the first half and ended up playing the majority of the game anyways. So on a personal level, it worked out because I got to play, and obviously we won the game. So it was really cool.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I mean, I think like from the fan perspective going to that game, and I was pretty young at the time because I was born in '94, and so, but I remember just being there and leading up to the game. I mean, for me personally, it was like I was like, oh, if we could win this game, it would be like the best thing ever. Because just knowing so many people in the Kansas City area that were Manchester United fans, and and knowing people that were only going to go to the game just to see Manchester United, and just how popular Manchester United was around the world at the time. Obviously that was like the golden age for Manchester United. Um, and so going to that game, I was just thinking like this is obviously like a FIFA matchup. Like the fact that we're that the Wizards are playing Manchester United is crazy. Um, but to see us beat Manchester United and like hearing like the like USA chants at the game and everything, I mean it was just so crazy.
Yeah,
Um, and it was also a great game, and I think Manchester United took it pretty seriously. They brought a lot of their star power from Europe, and the fact that we, despite having a red card, and the game being tied 1-1 until I think it was like Kai Kamara got a header or something to win the game as the game winning goal. But yeah, just absolutely insane. And so, so what was like the reaction after you guys won that game? Um, what were you
it
guys
felt
thinking?
yeah. I mean, it felt amazing. We fed off the energy of the crowd. Like you said, I think like the first part of the game, it definitely was like a friendly environment. Everybody was kind of like happy to be there. But then the longer the game went on, it turned into like a true home field advantage, and people were cheering for us. They were chanting for us. So we fed off of that energy, and yeah, I mean after the game, it felt great. I mean it was a celebration in the locker room. The other cool thing too was after the game. I was young at the time, and most of the team like went out and celebrated after the game. So we were down on the plaza, kind of like bar hopping
Yeah.
the rest of that night, and it was packed. Like the plaza was really crowded. It was a summer night, and so it was packed with people that had gone to the game. So there's like just tons of people that were wearing Wizards jerseys. Like people wearing Man U jerseys too, which fine.
Right.
But it seemed like the plaza, or at least where we were at, there was just a ton of people that went to the game. So it was almost like this celebration, not just with our team, but with our city. And I think that was, kind of one of the turning points too. Like during that game, I feel like we made a lot of people proud.
Yeah.
Whether or not we were intending to do that, I think that's just what happened. I think there was a lot of people that were at that stadium that left and were like, man, like that's my team.
Yeah.
Like that's my city. Like Kansas City just beat Man U. Like hell yeah, like they
Yeah.
wanted to be a part of that, and it
Yeah.
made people proud, and it made people feel like something special and this like real emotion. And I think that kind of propelled us and gave us some life, at least like for the next couple months, and really build up some momentum with our fan base too, because all of a sudden our fans, we gave them something to be proud of, and they wanted to continue to support us.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the case. Like I think that still for me, that's like the favorite game I've ever been to. For
There
for
you go.
Sporting Kansas City history, I mean, I still have the ticket stub from that game. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's just such a cool thing because it seemed like the international soccer world is so far away when you're in Kansas. And then when you beat Manchester United, it's like, okay, it's actually not so far away. Like the team here can compete at a pretty high level. And even beating Manchester United. And so, yeah, I think it was a really big deal. And I also looked up like recently because I was curious that's the only time Manchester United has ever lost in the U.S. In a
Oh,
friendly
really?
against an MLS team. They've never lost except for that game.
Huh.
So
Maybe it was the same summer, but they played the MLS All Stars maybe a couple weeks after our game,
yeah,
and they just smashed them. It
yeah,
was it was not even close.
yeah,
And
yeah,
MLS All Star, that's a completely different. I think it's harder to play with a
yeah.
group of
There's
All Stars,
no
but like
chemistry there. Yeah,
it was clear, Man U did not want to allow that to happen again. They could
yeah. I'm
not.
sure that they're. Well, I mean, they don't even seem to come to play in the U.S. against MLS teams anymore. Like, I don't know when the last time they came was, but I feel like there's less friendlies these days between some of the European clubs and MLS teams. At least the last couple of years. I don't know, but
Yeah, it seems like they're playing each other. Like the two
yeah,
European teams would come, they'd play in
yeah,
America, but they'd play
exactly.
each other because I don't know, they're both in preseason and
Yep.
maybe they don't have anything to lose type thing. Where
Yeah.
if you play against MLS and you lose, then
That's
not good.
true. That's right. Manchester United's never coming back to Kansas City again because of you. So
Sorry.
yeah, yeah, super super cool moment though. So thank you guys for that win because that was incredible childhood memory for me. So, but yeah. So what was your first game though playing for the Kansas City Wizards and like obviously that was the first moment you stepped on the field as member of your childhood team. So
Yeah, we were in Colorado. It was the first game of the year, and I had trained at center back. I had only recently like started playing center back, so but I spent the preseason playing center back and essentially was like the third center back on the team. So went into Colorado, didn't start, wasn't expecting to play. We were on the road. Curtin Alpha was the coach at the time. It was like the 85th minute. We were down a goal. I don't know if it was 1-0 or 2-1 or 3-2. I can't remember. But yeah, he called me to come over to come into the game. And so I was kind of taking off my substitute penny, like putting on my shin guards, all that stuff, getting assignments for the set pieces. And I assumed I was going in at center back because that's what I had trained all preseason. And he told me I was going in at outside mid. I was getting put out at winger. Um, so I was very surprised by that, but I didn't really care. I was just excited. I felt like I could play anywhere, and I kind of grew up playing different positions, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But I was surprised, and yeah, basically came in for garbage time for a few minutes, and just trying to get a goal. I do remember my first touch. Actually, there was like a cross that came in, and I was at the far post, and it kind of fell through to me, and it was a bouncing ball. But I mean, my first touch in an MLS game potentially could have been a goal. I shot it, and it went way over. I should have done a lot better than I did, but that would have been cool
yeah,
to score. But yeah, played that game, and after the game, I kind of thought it was weird. I didn't say anything. I was young and a rookie, like I didn't care. But Kurt Alfo like pulled me aside the next day or something, and he's like, "Hey, just wanted to let you know, like I'm not planning on playing you at winger. Like I just wanted to get you some experience in a game and
Yeah.
just like get the first one out of the way so that you're more comfortable because we do want to start giving you some more minutes and kind of build you up. So there was a there was a reason for me coming in at winger, and
Okay.
then I think I started the next game. Actually, I don't know if there was an injury or not, but we came back home and we played against San Jose in Kansas City at Community America Ballpark,
Yep.
and it was early March. We had one of those like winter storms in Kansas City that we seem to have every year in March. So it was really cold. It's kind of like icing. Just not a great day, if I'm being honest,
Yep.
to be a fan or to be a player.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we grinded through it, and I think we won 1-0, or we may have tied 0-0. But we got a shutout, which was kind of a big deal for the defense, and it gave us confidence.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, and luck, thank God, luckily again for the having the stadium today, yeah, instead of playing at Community America Ballpark. That's
Oh yeah,
I remember going to some of those games, and yeah, playing in a baseball stadium is always a little weird. So
yep, I agree.
I think also there was like a U.S. Open Cup game once at like Swope Park or something. I'm not sure if you remember that, but
Oh, there was Open Cup games all over the city.
yeah,
Uh,
just like random
yeah.
places. Like
Oh
at some
yeah,
high
yeah.
school. Um,
They were at. I've played an Open Cup game at UMKC.
okay.
I've played one at Blue Valley Northwest.
I think I was at the Blue Valley Northwest one. I think that's where.
Yeah, it was raining. I think we
Yes.
played New England Revolution. I mean, I
Yeah.
grew up like right down the street. I could have walked to that game from my
Wow.
house. They used to play games at Shawnee Mission North. So yeah, they played them all over.
Yeah. It's yeah, I think seeing you guys play on a high school field was probably one of the most surreal moments because it's like this is really strange. I'm sitting like in just high school bleachers basically at the game. So
Well, yeah, that game too. That was Seth Sinovic's first game ever.
okay.
Um, and so that was my second year, and so Seth had played, or maybe my third year, but Seth had played in New England for 1 year, and then got released or traded, and kind of came to Kansas City. So he was trialing with Kansas City, signed with Kansas City, and that Open Cup game was his first game, and it was against New England, which was his old team,
Wow.
and I mean, we tattooed them. It was not even
Yeah.
close. I think we won like 4-1 or something like
Yeah.
that. But Seth played great, and it was really a little surreal because Seth and I were playing next to each other. Seth was left back, I was left center back, and we grew up playing. I don't know if we ever played at Blue Valley Northwest, but like we grew up playing as kids in and around Kansas City, and
Yeah.
we were playing a professional game at a high school stadium in Kansas City. Yeah, didn't make
That's
a lot of sense.
yeah, no. Pretty weird moment. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, memorable though. One of the games I remember just because it was yeah, just such a strange setting. But um, so I've been talking about kind of I guess one of the major parts of your career then obviously would be winning the MLS Cup. Um, probably another kind of pretty crazy game. I think there was 10 rounds of penalty kicks in that game against Salt Lake. So
Yep. Yeah, I what do you want to talk about?
yeah, so like I mean, what would you say was kind of the expectation for that game then? Were you guys thinking like, okay, this could be, a real kind of grinded out type of game that it was, or um, what was kind of the mentality going into it?
I think the narrative leading up to that game was that they're two teams that have completely different styles. I remember there being a couple articles that were written comparing the two teams, and there was definitely some quotes between players and managers that were being said about the beautiful game and the physicality of Kansas City, and because our team at the time were pretty direct, high pressing team. We were athletic, we were physical, and that's how we got most of our results. And then Real Salt Lake was playing the 4-4-2 diamond. They had a bunch of like interior midfielders that like to keep the ball on the ground and like to kind of pass in these short passes. They were a possession based team. So that was the narrative going into the game. I don't know how much it motivated us or not. I liked our chances. I was very confident going into the game just because we were playing at home. I mean,
Yeah.
we're playing a home game. If you win, you're MLS Cup champs. Like, it's a huge advantage. Home field advantage in Major League Soccer is huge. So it didn't really matter who we were playing. I liked our chances because we were at home. The big variable in all the game was the weather and the conditions. As everybody remembers, it was one of the coldest games in league history, and so what happened was we went out for warm ups. We had talked about all week like how we were going to play and our strategy and all that stuff. We got out onto the field and the field was frozen.
Jeez.
The balls
Yeah.
were frozen, and so immediately like guys are kind of like freaking out a little bit. Like, oh my gosh, like I can't even kick the ball, and the ball's not rolling like it used to. So I remember like coming in as a team and just like looking at each other and be like, hey, look, let's stop complaining about the ball. Let's stop complaining about the field. It is what it is. Everything we've talked about leading up to this game and this week, we're throwing it out the window. It doesn't matter. It's going to be a completely different game than we thought it was going to be. It's not going to be pretty. We're not going to win any awards for scoring these beautiful goals. So let's just get that into our head right now and change our mentality and roll up our sleeves and just get ready to fight.
Yeah.
And so that's essentially what we did. I mean, I've never watched the game back again, so I don't know exactly what it was, but I probably would predict it wasn't a very pretty soccer game because it was 5 degrees and people couldn't run because it's so cold and the field was frozen and the ball was frozen and there was just so many things about that day. Um, I'm just glad we won
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
if not, I mean, I would have had a lot of regrets and I would have been complaining about all the conditions. And I said,
Yes.
this is
Yeah.
not fair. I want to play them when it's not frozen because we would have won and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just glad we won. So I didn't have to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that moment, is like a completion of this kind of incredible story that you have growing up in Kansas, playing for your hometown team, then winning the championship with your team. It makes me, I'm curious then, like, what were you thinking about like the rest of your career at that point? I mean, and then also, not too long later, you'd play for the U.S. national team in the World Cup. Did you ever think about going to Europe to play at some point?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a lot of things in that question. So yeah, I mean, winning the championship was amazing. Winning's just fun. I mean, it's the best. It's why you play. There's no feeling like winning. Um, Working hard for something and kind of coming together as a team. You always get to share those memories. And the other thing too about winning is it's contagious. So once you get that feeling, you just want more of it. You realize how special it is and how good it makes you feel, and so you're like, well, why wouldn't I want to try and win everything now? Like let's keep going and keep going. So I think that's kind of what happened with our group. Unfortunately, again, we were able to win something pretty early on in that core group, like in our careers, and so that kind of helped us. Um, yeah, I mean, national team started happening after that, and the whole Europe thing. Yeah, it's a long story. I don't know how much you want me to share, but
You can share as much as you want. Up to you.
I, yeah, um, I mean, I had interest in going to Europe, but I don't know. Everyone's different. Like some people are just so locked in on going to Europe, and like that's all they can think about. And
Yeah.
ever since they were 5 years old, they wanted to play in Europe. I could tell you that that wasn't me. I mean, I didn't even know what Europe like. I knew what Champions League was,
Yeah.
but beyond that, I mean, Champions League used to play at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
once a month. So I remember coming home from school and like being able to catch the second half of like Real Madrid versus Juventus, and like.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I mean, my world was American sports. It was Michael Jordan. It was basketball, and it was indoor soccer. Like I wanted to go and be a college athlete. Like that was my goal. So
Yeah.
um, it's totally different now. There's just so much more exposure. to the world and to Europe, and you just know so much more. So maybe my thought process would have been different. So yeah, the World Cup happened, started getting a ton of interest from Europe, and kind of started weighing my options. There was a couple teams in Germany because of our national team coach Jurgen Klinsmann. He had a ton of
Hmm.
connections in Germany. Mainz '05 was one of them.
Yeah.
Frankfurt was the other one. And then there were some teams in England that were interesting. Birmingham was one. Queens Park Rangers. They were both playing in the championship at the time. The closest team that I ever, you know, thought about going to was Fulham.
Okay.
Fulham was managed at the time by a German manager who was really close to Klinsmann. Fulham at the time was playing in the championship still. They also had a lot of Americans on their team, or like a good history of Americans.
Yeah.
Their owner was an American. I forget his first name, but his last name was Khan, Khan. He's the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and so
Oh, yeah.
he always wanted to like have Americans on the team. So yeah, I was interested in Fulham. Um, I thought it was cool, like London, England. Um, we got pretty far along, um, but I was still under contract with Kansas City, so it wasn't a deal where like I was a free agent or
Right.
like I had 6 months left of my deal and I was just going to wait it out and then go sign. I mean, I was like right in the middle of a pretty long term deal. I think I had 2.5 or 3 years left in my deal. So if anything were to happen, it had to have been via transfer fee. And
Yep.
that's just something that like I had nothing to do with that. So like
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, Fulham would be cool. Like let's look into this. They wanted me. I think we agreed to like personal terms. So we agreed on a contract,
Hmm.
and then it got thrown to the league to negotiate a transfer fee, and they went back and forth, and I think the league set a certain number originally, and then Fulham was like, okay, that's a deal, and then the league was like, no, actually we want $2 million more, and then Fulham probably said like, well, wait, no, that's not gonna work for
Right.
us, blah blah blah. So anyways, long story short, the deal fell through. um I honestly, I was not really that bummed out. Like it is what it is. I
Yeah.
mean, I felt like I had two good options and two good things happening. I just needed something to happen, and so that I could kind of focus on one or the other. But as soon as the Fulham deal fell through, I viewed it as like a sign, like okay, yeah, it wasn't meant to be, no big deal. I went back to Sporting and essentially renegotiated a long term contract. So I was able to use that as leverage a little bit,
Yeah.
and say like, hey, look, if I'm not going to go somewhere else, that means I'm going to stay here. This is where I want to be. I want to be here long term. I want to be the captain of the club. I want to spend my career here, and so let's do a deal, and that's what we did. We signed a 5-year contract, all guaranteed, which was one of the first fully guaranteed contract in league history, and so yeah, very grateful to our ownership group, and they were great through the whole process. And I feel lucky that they believed in me enough to sign me to that contract, and yeah, it ended
Yeah.
up working out how it should have.
Yeah, I mean, it worked out. Yeah, it worked out for the best. Obviously, like keeping the native cans in Kansas City was a good decision. So
Yeah,
luckily that happened. I didn't realize how close you were to going to Fulham. Also, I didn't realize how complex though, or like how much connections were kind of oriented around where players would go on, like or like go to Europe or something like that. I didn't realize connections played such a large role in terms of what teams you might end up on.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, I didn't either, but that's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
I think there's so many coaching changes in Europe. Like the coaches bring in their own players, and so they're always looking to kind of to bring in people.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it makes sense, if you're a foreign coach in a foreign country, like you're going to pick up the phone and call the people that you trust and people that
Yep.
like, hey, do you have any good players that I can sign? That was what was happening with the national team.
Yeah. Interesting. Um, so when you reflect on your career and impact on Kansas City soccer history with Sporting KC, what would you say is kind of the your proudest moment, and kind of the impact you've had in your career?
Whew, proudest moment. I can't pick one.
Okay, you could.
Can't.
What are some of the of your proudest moments then?
Yeah, they're all just different.
Yeah,
Because they're all happening like at different stages of your career. Like
sure.
when you're young, you're dumb. You don't know anything,
Yeah,
so you can't like appreciate anything. And when you're older, you have a much better appreciation and
yeah,
different perspective. So they're all special, like in their own ways. The MLS Cup was really cool because that's kind of, well, I guess rewind to that, like the Open Cup the year before, beating the Sounders in a shootout. The Sounders were 3-time defending Open Cup champs, and we knocked them off. And
yep,
that was really like the first taste for us of what winning meant and for the city. And yeah, MLS Cup was really cool. At the time, the Chiefs sucked. Um,
yep,
Royals weren't very good.
yep,
Um, so like we felt pretty cool. It was really fun for us to be in the spotlight and to share some of the spotlight with them. And I think we all realized like what it felt like to become a winner in Kansas City. Like it's such a great sports town, but we really hadn't had that much success in my
yeah,
lifetime. So we kind of got to see that. And I know it's a much different, smaller scale than like the Chiefs and Royals, but at the same time, I felt like we did play a small part in kind of exposing what Kansas City was about and how special it was to have a winning team. And yeah, I mean it's been a heck of a ride. Like the last 10 years have been incredible for all those
yeah,
teams. So yeah, that was cool. I mean, the World Cup stuff is definitely at the top, towards the top. It was really fun, representing our country. I felt like I was representing Kansas City. That was one of my favorite memories about the World Cup was leading up to the game or after the game, it's just like seeing Power and Light and just seeing how much support we had. I felt like, I mean, I could feel that support when I was down in Brazil. Um, it didn't feel like pressure. It more just felt like pride. Like I
yeah,
had all these people behind me that were rooting for me, and I felt like I had a special connection with them, like I knew them, and so that was really cool. Um, and then Open Cup, some of the later Open Cups when I was the captain, it's they're all this, they all feel good. Maybe they feel a little different when you're the captain, you know, being the guy like from Kansas City.
yep.
That may sound weird, but I don't
That
know. I
makes
just
sense.
remember like when I was a kid when I was young and I saw Jimmy Nielsen in 2013 and 2012, like he was the guy who got to like go up on stage and like lift the trophy. It was sweet. Like I was like, dang, like I want to be that guy,
Yeah,
like how, that's awesome. You're the captain. Like that's just one of the cool traditions in soccer. So I kind of like thought about it and like in the back of my mind, I was like, man, if I ever get to do that, like that would be really cool and such a cool memory. And fortunately, I was able to do that.
yeah. Pretty fitting that you would eventually become the captain of the team, given your background in the city. So yeah, that's super cool moment for sure. How do you think the MLS has changed since you retired?
Uh, I mean, yeah, it's changed in like all the ways. It's
Yeah,
like the players are better, the coaches are better, the product is better, more stadiums, bigger fan bases, more coverage. I mean, it's just yeah. I think in almost every area, it's grown and improved. So yeah, it's pretty incredible to think back um, how far it's come in
yeah.
such a short period of time.
What do you think of the Messi impact in the U.S. since he's arrived?
I'm actually surprised by how well he's done.
Yeah,
Uh, if I'm being honest, I mean, I think like I've been in the league, or I was in the league a long time, so I've seen a lot of people come in, and I've seen a lot of instances of people struggle, especially with Messi's profile. I mean, I
Yeah.
know there's only one Messi, so like
Yeah.
he's in his own category, but like a European guy that's never played in MLS, towards the end of his career,
Yep.
like most of those people come in and they struggle
Yeah.
because of all the challenges that they've never experienced before, the travel and the climate, and the everybody's the same and anybody can beat anybody, just the competitiveness of the league.
Yeah.
So I was kind of expecting that, and like Miami was kind of a disaster too, like as a team. They
Yeah.
weren't very good and they're kind of all over the place. So but I was wrong. I was dead wrong. And he came in, and from like right away, it was incredible.
Yeah.
Like
It was ridiculous.
it's unbelievable. I mean, just the difference he made. It's just, yeah, it's crazy to watch what he did to that club, and just to like watch him and how he influences the game and the effect that he has on his teammates, giving them confidence. And all of a sudden, one dude shows up who
Yeah.
I don't think like one person can really make that big of a difference, but clearly I was wrong again. Like he just shows up and all of a sudden that team believes they can win the championship. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. Too bad he didn't come a few years earlier. Then you could have matched up against Messi. That would have been fun.
I know. Yeah, we played against him once when I was with the national team, but I didn't play.
Okay. Okay.
We played against him in the semifinals of Copa America, or what was that tournament called? Copa America. That was 2017, I believe, or maybe 16. But yeah, we played them in the semifinals down in Houston, USA versus Argentina, and we got destroyed. I think we lost 4-0
Okay.
or 4-1. But yeah, Messi had 2 goals. That was the free kick he had.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, I was sitting on the bench that game and had a very close up view of that free kick. It was pretty
Yeah.
nice.
It's pretty impressive. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, yep,
Yeah. No, all pretty insane. And I agree. Like the impact he's had has been, yeah, completely ridiculous. Just I was watching basically like especially the first year, I was watching almost every game he played on like the Apple TV, and it was just insane. It was kind of the equivalent of like watching like Wayne Gretzky or Michael Jordan play in the because just like every game they're just on it, and just he scored almost every game like the first season. So it was just and the League's Cup situation
yeah.
was
Did you
insane.
did you go to that Arrowhead game,
I did not. So
Sporting versus Miami?
I'm living in Indiana these days in
Okay,
Indianapolis.
got it.
But I'm looking to come back actually for the CONCACAF Champions Cup game
Yeah,
coming up in February. Are you going to go to that?
I probably.
Yeah.
The Arrowhead game was really cool.
Yeah,
They
I
did a
heard
great
there's a
job.
bunch of
The
people there.
whole
Yeah.
the whole setup, just Arrowhead's just a fun stadium,
Yeah.
regardless of the sport. But yeah, it was, despite the result, it was a really cool game. Good
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah. No, it should be fun. It'll be interesting also to see what the vibes like in the actual normal stadium. So,
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
um
I think it'll be cool. I mean, up close and personal.
yeah.
Children's Mercy Park is it's obviously like an intimate stadium, so being
Yeah,
able to
the
watch Messi
vibe
is
seems a little
cool.
bit more intense there.
Yeah,
These are smaller, but yeah, I mean, it also makes me think, we're talking about Messi, but I don't know what you would make of this. You'd have more insight than I would. But when Sporting Kansas City was talking to Cristiano Ronaldo, like what was going on with that? Do you know much about that situation?
I
Or how
don't.
close they
I
were to signing?
don't. Other than I know that like everything that we've read is true.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was at the very, very tail end of when I was playing for Sporting. So, I think I'd maybe even left when all that stuff came out. So I actually I don't know. Other than the fact, when that stuff came out, I mean, I was just like anybody else. I was on the phone, like
what?
calling the people that I knew at Sporting, like, "Hey, is this true?" And
Yeah,
everything that I got back was like, "Yeah, like this, all of it's legit, and it almost happened." And
yeah.
yeah,
That would have been completely insane if he was in Kansas
agreed,
City.
agreed.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, wow, pretty crazy stuff. And also just strange, like the way that people have like rights, discovery rights and stuff, and how that works to players is
yeah. I don't understand
very
that.
confusing to
Seems
me.
it seems
Um,
kind of silly.
Yeah, and I remember like a couple of years ago, like talking to Peter Vermees on the podcast about just like the another kind of crazy thing about soccer today is just how many games are going on, all the different tournaments, and it's hard to keep track of which. And there's like a billion different events going on. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
crazy times. Anyway, what are you currently working on these days?
So I just started a youth soccer club here in Kansas City. Um, really excited about it. Really passionate about it. A couple different reasons why I started it, but one of them is regarding just me as a parent. I've got three kids, and they're going to be starting to play club soccer. So a couple months ago, we were just trying to be parents, figuring out what we wanted to do with our kids, and started looking into club soccer, and kind of one thing led to another, and here we are with me starting a youth soccer club in Kansas City. It's going to be called Captains. So Captains Soccer Club. It's going to be starting in the summer of 2025. Boys and girls teams haven't solidified age groups yet. That's still TBD, but hoping to announce something soon. And yeah, I'm really excited to get back into the game. I took 2 years off away from soccer after I retired. I needed a break
Yeah.
mentally, physically, just get away for a little bit, kind of like reset and move on from being a player. But now I'm ready to get back involved, and I'm excited to get started.
Yeah, that's a super cool thing to do and kind of give back to the community by starting another club. So that's great.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Um, but yeah, what's the best way for people to keep track of what you're doing and your new team that you're created here? So
Yeah, so there's a website. It's just captainssoccerclub.com. There's also some stuff on social media. We have an Instagram handle, Captains Soccer Club. We're on Facebook as well.
yeah,
That's primarily how we are communicating with people.
yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and your experiences, and also thank you for representing Kansas because I don't get to meet a lot of people from Kansas, that have done so much to their community in the sports world. So it's pretty great what you've done, and definitely makes me feel good about talking about Kansas and always mentioning people like oh yeah, by the way, yes, yeah, my hometown team beat Manchester United. So
Yeah. Well, look, I still carry that with me today. That will never leave. I'm still live here in Kansas, and I love this city. I love the state, and honestly, I feel very lucky, very fortunate. I was on some very good teams and played with some good players that made me look a lot better than I probably was, and I got to benefit from that. But yeah, it was a fun ride. So thank you for the
awesome.
support.